Hey everybody, it is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen, wishing you a fabulous day wherever you are in the world. I hope you're well. I hope you are safe. Thank you for joining me in tonight's class. It is a good one. You are going to want to watch it from the start right to the end. You might even want to take some notes because what we are making tonight is pretty fabulous. So first off, we will be making scones, aka biscuits, depending on where in the world you live. And who doesn't like a good scone, right? A lovely hot scone. So that's number one thing, is we're making scones. Number two thing is we're gonna add some cheese into those scones. And not just any cheese, we are adding a really flavoursome aged cheddar that is so incredibly good for our gut health as well. And then to top it all off, we're going to be fortifying these amazing cheese scones with extra protein. So it's going to help you to stay fuller longer. It's going to help make your hair shiny and your nails strong and your bones strong. And it's really good for muscle growth as well and muscle repair. And protein helps to keep you feeling fuller longer. So, you can't go wrong. Oh, and of course, they're gluten-free. They are grain-free, which is super exciting, and they are also sugar-free. So pretty fabulous scone. Let's get into the recipe. As always, I will be sharing the recipe with you guys tomorrow as a PDF on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. But of course, if you want to make them tonight, just might want to take some notes. All right, come down to my bench. Let's get going. As I said, super exciting. And I'm going to be making this very hands-on class we have tonight. So if you are joining me in making these on the go, you definitely want to make sure your hands are lovely and clean because we are going to be using our hands and getting involved. And that's kind of normal scone making, right? So the first thing that we're going to be doing is I've cleaned my bench down and I've cleaned my hands, which are the two most important things. I'm going to be using, sort of mixing the dry ingredients together first. And the first dry ingredients that I have, you know what? I'm just going to put it straight onto the bench. In this bowl here, I have almond flour. You can use almond meal. And I have 270 grams, which is about 9.5 ounces. Now, if you don't eat almonds, you could use another nut or seed flour of your choice. But I'm using almonds because it is quite simple, flavor, very well balanced. So that's why I'm using almonds. And yes, I know I've just dumped almonds onto my bench. How exciting is that? All right, so that's the first thing. Throw your almonds onto the bench. The next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding in, here it is. I was talking about that grass-fed gelatin. This is the brand that I use. It's called, this is in Australia, Nutra Organics. No, it's upside down, but that's what it kind of looks like. Now you want to choose a grass-fed gelatin. So something that's just got even better nutrient content in there for you as opposed to just a normal gelatin. And this stuff, like I said, it's good for your gut health. Amazing for anyone who suffers from leaky gut, by the way. So this stuff is really, really incredible. Hair, nails, skin, teeth, everything, bones, muscles. And you're going to be adding straight on top of your almond flour, almond meal, you're going to be adding 20 grams of our grass-fed gelatin, which is about 2/3 of an ounce. That's about 2 tablespoons, but you might want to weigh it just to make sure that you get all of that gelatin in there. Now, the reason why gelatin is so wonderful, I'm just going to move it forward just in case you guys, oh no, I'm going to move it back just in case you can't see. The reason why gelatin is so wonderful is that this particular gelatin is 98 to 99% protein. So it's really, really good quality. So mix that in just like that. We're going to add another dry ingredient, and this time we're adding our pure as inulin powder, which helps to fortify our lovely scone dough with some wonderful dietary fiber. And of course, it's also a prebiotic, good for gut health. So 1 tablespoon of our pure as inulin goes in there. We are also going to be adding just a little bit of tapioca flour, not too much. You could use tapioca flour or tapioca starch or arrowroot. All those three do pretty much the same thing. And you're going to be adding in 2 tablespoons. And by the way, you will make anywhere from sort of a dozen to 20 scones, depending on how big you obviously cut them. So 2 tablespoons of our tapioca goes in there. We need a raising agent. We're going to be doing that by the way of baking powder. And literally a tablespoon, I know it's quite a lot, a tablespoon of baking powder is going to go in there. Do I have any salt? I know I do. A pinch, just a pinch of mineral salt as well. And just to help with the binding, I'm also going to be adding in some xanthan gum, which is, it's an essential ingredient if you do a lot of gluten-free baking. If you don't have xanthan gum, you can also use gum, which is another type of binder. Works really, really well. And you're going to be adding in a teaspoon of the xanthan will help to bring everything together and bind everything really, really well. So that is all the dry ingredients. All that's sort of left for you to do is, give it a bit of a stir. This is, you can see why you are using a clean bench, because you were literally going to be doing everything onto your bench. I said it was hands-on, right? I wasn't joking. It is cool. It's nice to get hands-on. Let's get handsy. It's nice to get handsy just a bit. All right, so give that a bit of a mix through, just like that. Now there is dairy in this recipe, but if you want to go dairy free, there is nothing stopping you from, at this point in time, I'm going to be using grass-fed butter, and I'm going to be putting into here, I'm going to be adding in 60 grams of, just quite small diced grass-fed butter, cold. You can see how cold my bowl is, cold out of the fridge. You need it to be cold because we're going to be rubbing it in. But if you want to go completely dairy-free, you could instead use, at this point in time, some vegan butter. Can go in here, aka margarine, but I don't promote margarine. I'm not a fan, you guys know that. So it's okay to have a bit of good quality grass-fed butter, right? So fingertips time. For anyone who's ever made scones before, you know where this is heading, what you're going to be doing. That's why we have those clean hands and that clean bench, is we're just using our fingertips and working as quickly as we can. You want to start to incorporate the butter into your mixture. Now, if you're thinking that this all seems like quite a lot of work, there is a trick. Let me tell you, there is a really cool trick, and I've done both ways. I've done the rubbing in method, which I just love the nostalgia of rubbing things in. But you can also add all these ingredients that we have up to this point now, add it to a food processor and give it a bit of a blitz for maybe 30 seconds. And your butter will just break up fine. It won't be rubbed in, but it will still be well distributed throughout the mixture. And that's kind of what you're after when you're doing something like this, is you're wanting to distribute the butter, not melted, because that would just be horrible. You just get a real big mash and mix and mess of ingredients, and this wouldn't work at all. But when you rub things in with those fingertips, working fast so the butter doesn't melt, we start to see the development of almost like big breadcrumbs, which is what you are after. When it goes to the food processor, you don't get any crumbs. It's just really fine, and it takes 30 seconds. But, this is a really cool, hands-on thing to do. Also great for kids as well. Let's not forget the kids. So you're looking for breadcrumbs. So nice big breadcrumbs, just like that. And once you're sort of at that point and most of the big lumps have been squished out with your fingertips, so you sort of come to this point now where it's looking like it's pretty well blended and you're feeling pretty confident and you're feeling pretty good about yourself because you did it by hand. Didn't need any equipment. In fact, there's only one bit of equipment that you actually do need, and that's your oven. And your oven is going to be set at, obviously preheating now, at 190 degrees, which is about 390 degrees Fahrenheit. So 190 Celsius or 390 Fahrenheit. And also a good idea to line a baking sheet, either with a non-stick little sheet, which is what I have, or a little bit of baking paper. All right, so happy with that. That's looking good. Bring everything together. You don't want to waste any of your ingredients. The next thing you're going to think about doing is adding the cheese portion. So I have here the most incredible aged cheddar. So it's been matured for 24 months. So it's a vintage cheddar. It's lovely and sharp. It has wonderful texture as well. So you want to go for a really nice cheese, let's be honest. Because you're only adding in 80 grams, which is about 2.7 ounces. So you're not actually adding that much cheese, so you can afford to splurge a little bit. Definitely stay away from those tasties and those Colbys because they basically have no taste. I know it's called tasty, but it's not. It doesn't have much taste really. Whereas your aged cheddar has an amazing taste. And the wonderful thing about cheddar, notice by the way I'm grating it really thin. are really small. It's really fun. The wonderful thing about aged cheddar, the thing that I really love about it, and cheddar in itself, is because it's aged, that aging process that it goes through, as it's aging, a lot of the lactose, which is naturally, a part of cheese, that sort of is no longer there. So any type of aged hard cheese, if you find that you are lactose intolerant or that you can't handle too much dairy, go for an well-aged, I'm talking 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, like a really good Parmesan. Go for an aged cheese and you will find that your belly can handle it a lot better because it's kind of almost to the point of being lactose free thanks to the aging process. So all the cheese goes in there, give it a bit of a whack, don't want to waste it. And then you're just gonna get those clean fingers again and give it all a bit of a mix through. And the reason I like to, to do this straight onto the bench is because when you are rubbing the butter in, unless you've got like a really big mixing bowl, it can be a little bit awkward, whereas this is just so easy, right? You just kind of mix everything together and you get left with a really, easy process. So we need to think about adding in the wet ingredients now. There isn't much wet ingredients. So to do that, you just want to make a hole. If anyone's made pasta by hand, this is all going to start looking quite familiar. Kind of a similar process. All right, so you're going to make a bit of a well or make a hole in the center of your mixture there. I'm just making it pretty. You don't have to do, you don't have to do that. I just feel the need to make it all pretty. And we're going to take one large egg. Don't throw it on the ground. So one large egg goes into the center where we have made that little hole, and now we've kind of created this dam, this moat, so you don't get egg yolk running everywhere, which would be a bit of a mess. And then the last little wet ingredient we're going to use is a non-dairy milk. I'm using coconut milk. You could use almond milk. You could use oat milk. You could use any type of milk that you want that's non-dairy. And I'm going to be adding in 2 tablespoons. I like the taste of the coconut, that's why I'm adding it as well. 2 tablespoons of coconut milk goes in there. And then again, little fingers, give it a bit of a stir. And as it's stirring, just slowly begin to incorporate that dry ingredients until you start to get quite a clever little mess happening here. And this is where hands come in really handy. Oh, funny that, right? This is where your hands come in really handy, is what you're going to start to do is kind of squish it together. Now, if you were making traditional scones, this method would be an absolute no-no. In fact, to make a good traditional scone that uses normal white flour, the trick is to be as delicate as possible. And my auntie, who was the queen of scone making, she would always use a knife at this point in time, and she was very, very careful to only mix the dough, the scone dough, with the knife no more than 10 times, because she didn't want to cause the scones to become heavy. And the reason they become heavy is when you overexcite the gluten that is in the flour, and then they become kind of chewy, well, they become like glue, and you get a real heavy, dense scone. But because there's no gluten in our scone dough, you can be a little bit, less careful, and you can squish it together. And you can see just with that small amount of liquid, we have created a fantastic little dough. It's quite simple, right? Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit of it. Remember, you can make sort of, as I was saying, like 12 to nearly 20 scones with this particular mixture, because it depends on the size that you cut them. I'm just going to put that to the side. So I'm just going to focus on this one for you guys, showing you how to roll it out. So it's a good idea. If you don't want to waste anything, that's when one of these comes in handy, which is a pastry scraper. You can see how clean it makes my bench, just like that. Amazing, right? You're probably thinking, if you don't own one of these, little pastry scraper, it's a little plastic pastry scraper, you're probably thinking to yourself, where can I get one? And once you get it, you'll be like, how did I ever not have one of these? How did I survive? They're just wonderful for cleaning. You can get that from a chef's store. You can get that, sort of King of Knives, those sort of places have them. All right, taking your dough, don't have to add any more flour or anything like that to the bench. Just taking your dough, you're going to take up your rolling pin, and just kind of flatten it. That's all you're going to be doing, just flattening it. And as you're flattening it, make sure it doesn't stick to the bench. And as you're flattening it, you're looking for a thickness of around about 2 centimeters, which is about 3/4 of an inch. The thinner you make them, the less high they will be. So just bear that in mind when you are doing your dough, is you want them to be of a decent height, because these don't rise very much because of the type of ingredients we've got in them. So that's important to remember. So at this point in time, during the rolling process, will mainly determine how much rise you actually do get out of the finished product. So I'm using this super cute little pink cookie cutter. I would suggest can you see how one side's fluted and one side's smooth? Do not use the fluted side. Avoid flutes at all costs, because that will actually prevent these from rising even more and you'll get a real flat scone. You want to go with just the clean side there. So you just want to pop it into this top of the scone mixture and then push it down, and you should hear a bit of air coming back at you, which is great. And one thing you may have noticed, look at that, perfectly scone. One thing you may have noticed is that when I push it down and I listen for that pop of air, which tells me that I haven't condensed down the flaky layers. But the other thing that you need to avoid, and you may have noticed this, is when you take the cutter out of the dough, don't twist it, because twisting it will further condense all those wonderful layers that are now in there, and you will get a flatter scone. So just a very quick snap of the dough is all you need to do. Like I said, you don't have to worry too much. Like, this is such a forgiving dough because there's no gluten. So once again, you're going to get that snap. It's going to pop out. And you just keep on going. You just keep on sort of rolling and pinching and prodding the dough until you get, oh, that was a nice pop. That was a good air pop. That was a good one. Until you get all the mixture used up. And as I was saying, depending on your size, with this size cutter, I can get about 20 scones out of this one recipe. So a little does go a long way. So pretend like I've done all that. I've done the whole lot. It's already finished. All right, got my oven on. Remember, it's preset, 190 degrees, 390 degrees Fahrenheit. I've got this wonderful little non-stick, piece of silicone that is down there, or you could use baking paper, and just lay them onto the tray. Just a little space in between. Doesn't have to be too much. Just a little bit of space in between, and then taking up, if you'd like to get a really good glaze, a really good color on them, taking up just using maybe half an egg. If you get half an egg, it doesn't need much, but it's literally half an egg. Okay, break the whole egg in, whisk it all up, and this is going to give the tops of the scones a really lovely glaze. So get a pastry brush out, have a bit of a paint on top of your scones. As I said, they're looking fabulous, looking lovely. And then, just like the finishing, this is what I believe is the crowning glory, is take yourself up some nutritional yeast. So much wonderful flavor in there. And depending on how much you add to the top, you're going to use probably between 1 to 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, just to give it that final sprinkle over top of your scones. And then these now, with a full tray, go into the oven. Make sure it goes into the middle shelf, because you want the top and the bottom heat. You don't want to too close to the bottom and the bottoms will burn. Too close to the top and the tops will burn. So always put your baked goods as central to the oven as possible. So right in the middle there, and these are going to bake for about 14 to 17 minutes. But keep an eye on them, because your oven may be hotter than mine, your oven may be colder than mine. In my oven, they were a perfect 15 minutes. Absolutely perfect. So those now go over to the oven. And of course, here is some I prepared earlier. Ta 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 ta. Oh, look at them. I know, right? These are phenomenal. Look at the color. Look at the color. They are phenomenal. They are so packed full of goodness. And you know what? They are amazing straight out of the oven, which makes a lot of sense, because what scones are hot from the oven. Didn't even need anything. Didn't even need any topping, because they've got so much flavor in there. But they're also really good when they're cooled down as well. So you get the best of both worlds. You get to have a lovely hot scone straight from the oven, and they've got a really lovely texture as well. Or if you want to, there is absolutely nothing stopping you from allowing them to cool down on a wire rack as if that's going to happen, right? I know that's not going to happen. But if you wanted to, cool them down on a wire rack. Best eaten in a couple of days after they're made. You know, reheat them in the air fryer just to give them a bit of warmth. These are so good. And what is really, really amazing about them as well is they have a very light, can you see that? And flaky texture. Where's the camera? There, can you see? They have such a wonderful light and flaky texture. They just taste so good. I know you're going to enjoy these. I know you're going to love them. I will be sharing this recipe with you guys tomorrow on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. If you want to request a copy of the PDF sent to you, this is the first time I've ever made these, so it's not available anywhere else in the world. You were the first ones to get this recipe because I invented it, so it's my recipe. You guys are the best ones in the world to get this, and I'll be sharing this with you guys tomorrow morning. If you'd like your own PDF copy sent out to you, I would absolutely love to send you one. So keep an eye on Bridget's Healthy Kitchen tomorrow. In the meantime, stay well, stay safe, stay everything, stay beautiful. All right, guys, take care. Ooh, flying dough everywhere. Take care, and we'll see you again in the kitchen real soon. Bye.